What is up guys, Andy Forest Team Runner here, and today I'm bringing you guys my first impressions on the ASICS NOVABLAST. So that's 9 incredibly amazing miles done and dusted in the ASICS NOVABLAST. Wow, what a shoe is all I'm going to say to this. Today we're going to be going through the technical overview of this thing, and then of course my first impressions of this shoe, how I found it on the run and how I'm going to be using it moving forward. Spoiler alert, I'm going to be using it a lot. So if you're excited for today's video guys, make sure you give it a like, share it with your friends, subscribe to the channel for weekly running content, and without further ado, we'll dive in to the technical side. So the NOVABLAST is a new shoe to the ASICS range in 2020. It's a neutral cushioned road running shoe in my size, which is a UK size 13, weighs in at 346 grams or 12.2 ounces, which is pretty much exactly the same weight for me in my size as the New Balance 1080 version 10. It's a 10mm heel to toe drop shoe. I couldn't work out or find out on the internet what the actual millimeter drop is, but I do know it's 10mm, which is relatively standard for ASICS, because when I remember running in ASICS shoes over a year ago, most of the shoes that I ran in ASICS were either 8 or 10mm heel to toe drop, so it felt very familiar. So what we'll do, as always, is we'll work our way from the heel, deal with the heel area, tongue, lacing system, upper, move to the midsole, move to the outsole. And just before we dive into that, I just need to say, for those of you new viewers, I exclusively ran in ASICS for about 3 years, just because I used to go to the outlet centre and buy ASICS shoes. So comfortable. And for me, ASICS was such a hit and miss brand back then, and I haven't run in them for well over a year. So I've been watching the glideride, the evoride, the Nimbus 21 Lite, and thinking I'm going to have to get back into ASICS at some point, because they seem to have revolutionised their trainers, and I can safely say that this thing is absolutely incredible. When I used to buy ASICS shoes, it was very hit and miss as whether I get a good one or a bad one, and I had a bit of a love-hate relationship with them, but right now this thing is incredible. So let's start ourselves in the heel area. We have what I would call a very home from home feeling for me, slipping my foot into this shoe. The ASICS heel counter area, always in my head, is such a comfortable and cushioned area. Having said that, there's probably a little bit less foam padding in and around the heel collar, heel counter ankle collar area. Normally ASICS shoes are very, very plush, especially the long, slow, easy day type of shoes that you can get from ASICS. This is a little bit thinner, but still just the perfect amount of cushioning in and around this heel area. And we haven't got a bumper pad anywhere like we have in some of the other shoes, where we've got quite a thick bit here and then thinner at the bottom. It's just nice and perfect all the way around the heel and ankle area. Moving on to the tongue, again, ASICS have shed a little bit of padding off the tongue. It's a relatively mid-width tongue, I'd say. It's not the normal plush padded tongue, but it's certainly not paper thin. Again, just perfect. It's not a gusseted tongue. For those of you who don't know, gusseted tongue is where there tends to be some kind of elastic material connecting the inside of the tongue on either side to the inside of the midsole to try and help lock down the tongue around your midfoot and give you a secure feeling, but you don't need that because the lacing system does it for you. This again looks a very simple lacing system, which is perfect. I haven't needed to use the extra eyelet chain because I got such a great feeling on the midfoot on the lockdown, and that's partly down to the upper, the engineer mesh upper, which we'll come on to shortly. So the lacing system was great. I will just say, a point to note, the laces, they're not elasticy, but they're certainly not stiff and rigid, so I did think to myself, the first thing I need to do is cinch from the bottom all the way up to top to make sure, just in case they were elasticy, that my midfoot didn't become unsecure or anything like that, and it didn't. It felt absolutely brilliant. So that was perfect, and guess what? Perfect length laces as well. Not too big, not too small, like the Kinvara 11. Moving on to the upper, we've got an engineered mesh upper here, and from what it looks like for me, it looks like a dual layer thing, because as you can see, we've got some ventilation holes in the top of the upper here, and through there I can see another layer of mesh. But if I hold this shoe to the window right here and look straight through, I can see daylight right through the shoe. So it's a very thin, breathable mesh upper, which is great. It's really good. They've obviously shed some weight. Again, ASICS uppers can sometimes be very heavy, very clunky. This thing is not. And the way that this upper is designed is just absolutely phenomenal. It's not quite as stretchy as the 1080 V10, but it is a little bit stretchy, meaning that it just wraps to your foot absolutely perfectly. The fit for me, and it was true to size, I went UK 13, absolutely perfect, is phenomenal. There are just no words. It was such a good fit. And we've got a couple of welded overlays here. We've got the standard ASICS logo, and then we've got a few extra details up and around here, patterns around the back, a nice secure heel area. But other than that, the rest is just this thin engineered mesh upper. And then, ladies and gentlemen, we move on to the piece de resistance, the Flight Foam Blast. The last time I ran in Flight Foam, and I know this is Flight Foam Blast, so it's different, but the last time I ran in Flight Foam was in the ASICS Roadhawk FF2, and my word, that was the worst shoe I had ever run in. Moving on to the NOVABLAST, all I'm going to say is wow. Flight Foam Blast is the real deal. I can liken this to the fuel cell midsole. The first time I put my foot in the fuel cell Propel, I had that incredible feeling of, wow, this is soft, this is cushioned, this is amazing. The difference between those two midsoles is that this is, wow, soft, cushioned, and makes you want to move. The responsiveness of this midsole is incredible. So I'm going to say a big, bold statement and go that I think I prefer the Flight Foam Blast to the fuel cell. Bearing in mind, fuel cell was my favourite midsole of 2019. This is incredible. And we'll get on to why it's incredible in my first impressions at the end. So we've got Flight Foam Blast running all the way through the shoe. No gel in here, just Flight Foam Blast from heel right through to toe. And then, as always, we've got ASICS Hard Abrasion Rubber. I think that's what it stands for, something like that. It's their acronym. On the outside, in the majority of the places, what I would say in hard-wearing places, and then of course exposed Flight Foam Blast coming through the bottom there. But again, in my opinion, perfect amount of rubber outsole, really thin amount as well, not to add to the weight. So overall, this is just such an incredible shoe from a technical perspective. But what about my first impression? Okay, so I'm going to try and keep my enthusiasm at a limited level, otherwise I'm going to be like Tigger bouncing around the room saying how incredible this shoe was. But this shoe was incredible. From the second I put my foot in this shoe, walking around my house, I thought, I'm going to like this. And the second I got out the door and took my first step, I was grinning from ear to ear like a Cheshire cat. I can categorically say there has not been a shoe there's been a very long time, I'm trying to think back to which shoe it was, that gave me such a sense of satisfaction when running in a shoe. This is it. For me, if I had to run in one shoe out of all the shoes that I tested last year and this year, this is a bold statement. I would pick this shoe as a daily trainer, as a long run trainer, even potentially, maybe not a speed shoe, but everything else, this is it. Whatever ASICS is doing at the moment, keep on doing it, because this is revolutionary. This, for me, is bringing ASICS into the 21st century and competing with other brands around them. No longer are they in the shadows of other competitors. No longer are they falling behind the times. This thing is bringing them right back into it. And all this thing makes me want to do is go out and try the evoride, the Nimbus Lite. I just want to try the range. If this is anything to go by, then I am really looking forward to future releases, especially anything with Flight Foam Blast in it. What a midsole. 10 out of 10 for the midsole. Absolutely incredible. So the long and short of it is I went for a 9-mile run yesterday, and I was just going to do a bit of up-tempo work. I put a post out on my social media saying running with a baby is hard. I was very tired, and I'm actually going to be dropping a session a week and just running one session a week. I'm pretty close to my goal race, so there's no point in me trying to do anything stupid that's going to get me to the start line injured. And I went out with the intention of running steady. And steady for me would be around the late 6-minute miling. I clocked 3 sub-minute 6-minute miles in this thing on the bounce, and everything else was around 6, 6:10, 6:20 up the hills. This thing made me want to move, and I felt effortless in doing it. I finished 9 miles, I wanted to go on. I wanted more. I wanted the journey to continue in this shoe. And all I'm going to say is I cannot wait to carry this forward and do more running in it. I'm telling you now, we are going to hit 100 miles in this thing really, really quickly. If I had a choice of anything right now, I would just pick up this shoe. To run sub 6-minute miles on the trails in this shoe means that I would use this for speed work. It means I would use it for daily runs. It means I would use it. I cannot wait to run 20 miles in this thing on the long run. It is gonna be phenomenal. And for any of you out there that have ever questioned ASICS, have ever questioned their mission or their shoes and their integrity of their designs moving forward, they are coming back with a bang, and this thing is the real deal. So that's it for my first impressions. I cannot convey to you guys how much I enjoyed this shoe. But of course, have you run in this shoe? It's quite a new shoe. I'd love to know if you've got a pair, if you've run it, and what you think. This, in my mind, is what I had envisaged the New Balance Fuel Cell TC to be, the trainer that I'm saving up for when it's released in April here in the UK. A soft, bouncy ride. This doesn't have a carbon plate, but it feels like it wants to propel you forward. This is exactly what I envisage that being like. This is gonna be an incredible marathon trainer, half marathon trainer, everything. I got to end it there. I've got to stop, otherwise I'm just gonna go on too long. So that's it from today. Those are my first impressions. I hope I'm conveying my enthusiasm enough for this shoe. But as I said, let me know in the comments if you have run in this shoe and what you think of it. That's it for today, guys. Look forward to the speed and long run test in this thing. Give this video a like, share it with your friends, subscribe to the channel for weekly running content, and as always, I'll see you on the next one. Until then.